How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be covering Bitcoin, Ethereum. We're going to get into some macroeconomic news, cover the government shutdown and what effect it's had on crypto, what I expect it to continue to do for crypto. We're going to cover all of that. And before we get into any of that, I do have some things just to share. So for Instagram, that's where I post all of my trades completely for free. On my stories, I post trade updates for those, so check out the Instagram, go and follow there if you want daily leverage trades. But even then, I will call out a lot of other spot positions as well. So we're going to be doing that, but also I'm going to be doing some giveaways there where you got a free course that will be on the way for you guys. So a lot planned. Just stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, today we're just going to do a quick update before I have to leave. We're going to touch on Bitcoin first and foremost. So I had placed a short limit in, and you guys can see we just blew past that short. So I got stopped out of this pretty quickly. I mean, all within one day, it got filled and stopped out. My DCA got filled, I got stopped. And this is essentially in reaction to news we had today. And again, we'll get into that, the significance of that news, what this means for crypto, etc. But I got stopped out of this. Now, if you go over to Brett, this is another free trade I'd shared. We almost got stopped out, but we're now almost up 1R. Should break free from all of this in the event that we just continue upwards. But if we look at Bitcoin on the higher time frames, well above the simple moving average now. We're well above QVWAP. I believe we're above the mid level. We're above almost this second band as well. And if you look, EMAs, we're all above those. So ideally, or Bitcoin looks pretty strong here. Okay, we're breaking from bearish structure to bull structure. So I think Bitcoin's going to have some sort of continuation upwards. We can remove the supply zone, this DCA level, and I can kind of show you guys what I think will happen next. Okay, so my personal take is that we come down, form a low that's higher than the previous one, and then continue up to potentially reach that new all-time high of around like 125K. So we'll have to wait and see what eventually happens, but this is kind of the direction that I see us going, unless we face some resistance here, which we might. So that would be around $123,000 per Bitcoin. We might look at that level. We might look at 120K, multiple taps right there. So there's a couple different space or places where we're going to be looking to potentially get short in on Bitcoin, but I think we're pretty much going to be going up from here. So that's my thoughts on Bitcoin. Very short, really not too much more to go over from yesterday. Does look very strong. If we go to the weekly time frame, this is where it looks a little better actually, because if you guys look, it almost looks like we are breaking into bull structure again. And maybe we need to push up even higher to form a high here, but nonetheless, the weekly time frame still looks okay in my opinion. It still looks fine. We're gonna definitely face resistance around 120K. You can see on the weekly time frame, definitely a lot of resistance there. So we're gonna also have to wait for that. But that's it for Bitcoin. Not too much again for us to share there. If we go now to Ethereum, it's basically the same thing. On the daily time frame, technically, you could say we broke from bear structure to bull structure. We had a harsh or sharp rejection off the support level, which I actually had along. This was a free trade, so again, the free trades do come in effect there. We're now tapping into this bearish for value gap. I do believe there's a supply zone there. We're closing above and are above the SMA, the simple moving average, QVWAP levels. We're about to close above that middle band, which would indicate that we are moving in a bullish direction. We're closing above that 50 EMA on the daily time frame. So again, ETH still looks really good here for my opinion to have a further continuation up. Now on the weekly time frame, we kind of had a breakdown here where we had a high, a low, a lower high, a lower low. In order for the structure to break, we'd have to push up to around 5K for that break of structure to occur, for us to flip back bullish structure on the weekly time frame. So ETH looks good to run it up in these next couple of days to weeks, just my opinion. If we go and look at total 2, this is everything but Bitcoin. Okay, we have a pretty good resistance here at $1.68 trillion. clearly respected this $1.5 trillion in total market cap. So my idea is that we can have a continuation forward, right? Kind of this being our previous high, a low, a high that's higher than this one. I think we could see continuation up of total 2, meaning all coins starting to get more love and actually having decent pushes up. We're kind of seeing that with Aerodrome, multiple taps within this 0.65 fib range. I think we're good for $1.60 and potentially even higher in these coming days. So we're gonna have to watch a lot of these coins. Sweet, if you would have longed here at this trend line, you would have got a nice long. I did not. We did try a short on Inge because we fell below the support, but then of course today being a day where we had no idea what was going to happen, we just completely got stopped out of that. And let's get into what happened. So we had a government shutdown after Trump and Congress failed to reach a deal. So basically, as you can see, federal workforce layoffs are imminent. So basically what this means is they're still technically employed by the government. However, they are essentially on an unpaid leave. So they will not be working, but they also don't get paid for not working also until everything's back up and running, until they're needed again. So what the government will do in times like this is they'll allocate funding towards essential government activities, but they'll not allocate money and funding towards non-essential activities, which people who work in those non-essential fields will be the ones who get temporarily laid off. You can see that's what furloughed means. Okay, so that's what furloughed means, and that's kind of the situation that those people are in. Now, if we look at some macro data here, the one that I'm really concerned with is the non-farm employment change. So this, as you can see, you have the previous, which was minus 3K. It was forecasted to be 52,000, and it was actually minus 32,000. This signals a decent bit of fear within the job market. It does not make the job market look too healthy here with that minus 32,000. But what this essentially means for crypto, and why crypto is seeing a great reaction to this government shutdown, why we're seeing a great reaction from this non-farm employment change. The reason for this is because crypto relies a lot on the US dollar being weak, essentially. So when the US dollar shows signs of weaknesses, that's when we see a lot of money starting to flow into those higher risk asset classes as like a substitute, that being cryptocurrency. In the event of a government shutdown, that's exactly what is going on. There's fear within the government, fear within the United States dollar. So what happens is you have money that flows into higher risk assets. And another thing, when you have things like that of a government shutdown, when you have that on farm employment data and other things of that nature that signal that the job market looks to be weakening or in a weakened state, that increases the chances of the Fed to go and cut interest rates, and that of course flows a majority of the liquidity within the markets and encourages a lot of liquidity flowing into those high risk assets. So my opinion is we see a lot of money, people want these rate cuts to come in. The Fed most likely is going to cut rates again this October. If you look at last year, we had rate cuts in September, October, November, and December. And that is when we had very good rally within crypto. And I think we could see something similar this year. We're just honestly gonna have to wait and see. There's really no way of us really telling for sure. But in terms of macroeconomics, the Fed does look more likely to cut rates than not this month. And I think that could fuel even more growth within crypto to a potential good spot here. So that is my thoughts on that. We covered Virtual's protocol last video, or it was a video before that, at $1.01, and we're at almost $1.10. So I'd covered it around this level. So that's almost a 10% increase. Again, I'm giving this one out for free. I have a Notion sheet that covers literally a bunch of coins. But I see Virtuals this cycle, assuming we get a pump, going to $1.50 to $2 to $5 potentially. If you look at its previous all-time high. I think it could definitely revisit that previous all-time high, especially if it breaks out of this trend line here, which I think can be easily identified. You have 1 tap, 2 taps, 3 taps, multiple taps there. If we come back up, break above that, then I think it could be $5 could be within range from a purely technical analysis standpoint. Okay, but that's basically everything. We covered Bitcoin, we covered Ethereum, we covered the macroeconomic data. How did the government shutdown impact crypto? And I gave you guys my thoughts on virtual again. That's going to be it for me today. But again, make sure to check out the Instagram for daily free trading content. And again, I'll have that short free course for you guys with deals on a lot of the platforms I use with really good incentives to actually use them. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. I hope you have a nice one. I'll see you guys later.